Okay. So, guys, let's get depressed. Yeah, economically depressed. Okay. Now, I showed you the little video on Ben Stein, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Ollie Smoot. Okay, guys, really, this is tragic. Like, and I think, I don't know if I talked to you guys about this before or not, but when Trump was running for office, he talked a lot about doing tariffs against China. Okay, we have it's like a $550 billion trade deficit with China, which means we buy $550 billion more of their stuff than they buy of ours. Okay, and that's an imbalance in trade, especially when they literally have 1 billion more people than we have. They have 1.3 billion. We have the 0.3, right? So I understood where Trump was coming from, but I taught this for a long time. You know, I mean, I've been teaching about the effects of tariffs on the economy. And so, you know, I'm a little weary of it, you know, as Trump's talking about this, because when Obama ran, he talked about doing some tariffs. Bush talked about doing some tariffs, and neither one of them had the stones to do it. You know what I mean, right? But Trump, well, he's got those, okay? Sorry, he just does. He doesn't care, okay, about China. He's not worried about pissing them off, okay? He's worried about the United States. And so he's like, this is going to be good for the U.S. I'm like, I don't know. So, you know, I talk to people about it, you know, and get into a trade war. But guys, it's kind of like this. China needs us. We need them. Who needs the other more? We need them more? Or do they need us more? Can we make this stuff that's made over there here? We can. No, not as cheap, but can we do it? Yeah. Okay. Do they create the technologies that they're building? No, we create the technology and have them build it for us. So who's in the advantage? We are. Okay. So, you know, it's one of those things. We talked about it before, you know, would you rather be able to buy cheap stuff at Walmart or have that stuff made in the United States and pay more for it, creating more manufacturing in the United States, good blue-collar jobs, manufacturing jobs? That sounds pretty good to me, but be expensive. So just something to kind of keep in mind, you know, as you think about politics, you think about money, think about our country. All right, so last session we talked about margin loans, where people borrowed money to invest in the stock market, right? Banks were handing out loans, a lot of loans, not just to investors, but to other people like farmers. Okay, if you know any farmers, you know sometimes they got to borrow money for seed or a new tractor, more land. You're borrowing money. Okay, so when the price of crops, like you saw the price of wheat, the price of cotton began to drop like that, farmers were in trouble. So when we talk about bank failures, it was really the rural banks, rural areas that were hit first. So we see 1929, 1930, a lot of these are rural banks, but they will spread. Okay. So foreign deposits, guys, when trade got cut, that meant there was a lot less money moving through our banks from imports and exports and that sort of thing. Less cash flow going through our banks. So as foreign deposits slow, banks have less what? So as foreign deposits slow, trade slows, banks have less cash. When farm prices drop and farmers cannot pay back their loans to the banks have less. When people lose their jobs, they're laid off from the factory, Ford or anybody else. They can't pay their mortgages back to the bank. Banks have less. When people borrowed money from the banks to invest in the stock market, and then the stock market crashed, they weren't able to sell their investments and get that money back. They couldn't pay their loans back, and the banks had less. And when people heard that the banks had less, they ran to the banks to get out there, and the banks ran out of, and they shut their doors. There's no FDIC. There's no Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Your money is not insured. When the banks close their doors, guys, anything that you had in there is gone. You guys know you have savings accounts. The money that you have in your savings accounts not all sitting in the bank. They use that money to loan it to other people and charge interest. That's how banks make money. And then they pay you a little tiny bit of interest. Has anybody noticed your interest on your savings account going up a little bit? Oh, it's got to, right? Interest rates are up. You get just a little bit more. I got like $5. Yeah. Instead of 5 cents. That's one benefit of interest rates going up, right? You didn't have to get out of bed to make that $5. Can you explain this to me on the test? Any guys ever see a movie called It's a Wonderful Life, Christmas movie? Grace?
Didn't see it.
Joanna? What's wrong with you? I need to talk to your dad. What else were the other movies you haven't seen? I mean, what are you doing? Okay. Remember how It's a Wonderful Life, cousin what's his name, uncle what's his name loses the deposit, and then people here like they're running out of money, so everybody comes to get their money out of the bank. It's literally a run on banks, guys. Like people are running to the banks to get their money out. And the banks don't have all that cash there. Okay? It's the run on banks is the other big problem here. Okay? When people rush to the banks. Okay? So you can see the number of bank failures here. 1929, 30, okay? In the end, 1/4 of all the banks in this country will go under. 9 million people will lose their bank accounts. That's bad. When you can't get your money out of the bank, now you're in trouble. You're in deep trouble. Lose your house. Now, before you lose your house, this is what's going to happen. You guys ever see a movie called Cinderella Man? You watching movies in history? Great movie. Great movie. That is a great movie. As far as movies that depicted the Great Depression, now when I first started teaching here, guys, I used to show a movie. Any of you guys heard of this book or movie? The Grapes of Wrath. Okay. Is that Steinbeck? Yeah. Steinbeck? Yeah, it's really famous piece of American literature. Okay. But I used to show that movie, The Grapes of Wrath, in class. And everybody would sleep. I mean, it's dry. Like Dust Bowl. Dry. Okay. And so I quit showing. But it kind of showed the effects of the Depression. But Cinderella Man does this, which is a fabulous story based on true story about a boxer in the 1920s, guys. His name's Jim Braddock. He's a heavyweight champion. Okay? And boxing was big. He's fighting in Madison Square Garden in New York City. Okay? He broke his hand. Couldn't fight. Depression hit. They tried to fight before his hand was healed. He made it worse. So they lost everything. So they're living in this little apartment. They don't have enough money to turn on the heat. Can't find a job. He's trying to work on the docks. Some days he gets work, some days he doesn't. So you're talking about like a heavyweight fighter, that can't provide for his family. So I mean that kind of just, it's a really good look at the depression. Well, anyways, at one point in the story, they turn the heat off. And he goes to visit his manager at his apartment. And he walks into the manager's house or apartment. Nice place. No furniture. So people would start selling things off to keep a roof over their head. You understand? So you sell your furniture, you might sell some jewelry, okay? You want to hang on to the automobile. Because if you lose your house, at least you'll have a car to sleep in. Okay? This happened to a lot of people. Okay? And so you'd sell everything and then you sleep in your car and maybe move somewhere where you thought there might be work. And if there was nowhere to go, you would it's like you see in San Francisco right now, New York City right now. You pitch a tent somewhere, okay, and maybe build a little, shanty town made out of scraps of wood, rocks, stones, cardboard, in an empty vacant lot somewhere, okay? So as things get worse, guys, you're going to end up with a lot of homeless people, okay? But they tried to hold on, So as we sink into this, guys, a little bit more, when factory owners couldn't sell the products they were producing, they began to slow down or shut down, which just led to higher unemployment, which meant there were more people without money to buy anything. Laid off workers, some who lost their savings in the banks, couldn't buy anything. So we start to sink into severe economic depression. Okay, it's pretty bad. Okay, like at the peak, about 25% unemployment. 25%. Okay, now many people that did have jobs were working part-time jobs. You know what I mean? Like they didn't have full-time employment. Just doing anything they could to put food on the table, if they had a table. Okay? But at the same time, about 60, 65% of the population does have jobs. It's like, you think depression, it's all black and white, right? Dark and dreary. But the country continues. It's not like the country came to a standstill. As I said yesterday, nobody starved to death. Were there soup kitchens? Yeah. The charities have to hand out food? Yeah. Now, Hoover wasn't willing to do a lot with the federal government. Okay? So you start to see this. By 1932, you got 12 million unemployed who are able-bodied, willing to work, just can't find a job anywhere. As I said, many were part-time. Any of you guys live in Colwich? Any of you been to Colwich? There's one grocery store in Colwich. What's it called? Kraus, right? Now let's say Kraus has 10 full-time employees, okay? The depression hits. People aren't buying near the amount of goods from Kraus as they were. So Kraus is going to have to lay off 5 people. But who are these 5 people, guys? This is Colwich, Kansas. Everybody knows each other in Colwich. You know what I mean? These are like your neighbors. And they don't want to lay off their neighbors. So instead of laying off 5 people, they make all 10 of them part-time. So maybe they can keep a roof over their head. But they're not, you know, life is going to be very difficult. And so the homeless gathered in places like, this is Central Park in New York City. Have you guys been to Central Park in New York City? Oh, wow, cool. Yeah, it's pretty neat, isn't it? This Hooverville was built there. Okay, these are scraps. These little houses are made out of scraps. Okay? People didn't have anywhere to go. So if you look at the impact of the Depression on society, marriage rates dropped by 33%, by a third. College enrollment, not near as many people can afford to go to college. Not that it was super expensive back then, but people had to be working if they could. It's kind of a privilege to go to college. And yeah, there was a lot of hunger. You guys seen this photograph before? It's in pretty much every textbook in America. Okay, every history book in America. It's a Pulitzer Prize winning photograph. And it's called Migrant Worker. Okay, so a picture tells 1,000 words. Like, what's going through this woman's mind at this point? Like, how did I get here? How did this all happen? Where am I going to go next? What's next for my children? Okay, so it does. It's a photograph that, it says a lot. I mean, this is a strong, she's a strong-looking woman. It's like she's worked, like she's weathered, but strong. In the movie Cinderella Man, they actually go down into these Hoovervilles in the movie, and you'll hear the word Reds. Listen, guys, capitalism had failed. Democracy had failed. You understand? Like, people were desperate. When people become desperate, they look for alternate ideas to get them out of that situation. So in these Hoovervilles, these were hotbeds for ideas like communism. Okay, like, this system isn't working. We need to try something else. Okay, so there was a little bit of radicalism in there. Okay, in these Hoovervilles. Can't really blame it. And if you read Steinbeck, The Grapes of Wrath, it's filled with socialist undertones. Like, the government is the savior of the story. You understand? And the businesses are the evil ones. Okay. Good here? So when desperation turns ugly, desperate people do desperate things. So you had hunger marches, violence, looting. Great scene in that movie, Cinderella Man, again, where one of the sons goes in and he steals food. And his, dad's got to teach him a lesson. Forced evictions. Okay. This was really hard, guys. You foreclose on somebody's house and, you got 2 weeks. 2 weeks to get out. And if you didn't get out, they'd call the sheriff. The sheriff would his deputies would take all your furniture, anything you had in the house or the apartment, and put it on the front doorstep. They'd hold an auction right there and sell everything you have. and give you the money. Okay? And if there weren't people buying that day, I mean, you're not getting what you should have gotten for that stuff. But that's how they did it. And then when you start talking about evictions off of family farms, you know, farms that people had farmed for generations that they didn't own yet. Look at this number. Between 1930 and 1934, 1 million family farms were foreclosed on. Now, how many people would live on the average family farm in 1930? I mean, it kind of depends. But you got mom and pa, right? Probably grandma, grandpa. You got kids. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. The aunt that never married. Conservatively, I mean, you could say like 7. That's 7 million people from this area of the country. Okay? Where are they going to go? Where are these millions of people that lived on farms going to go? Well, Steinbeck and the Grapes of Wrath would have you believe they all went to California. Some of them did, because there was a hope of jobs out there. The drought wasn't going on out there. But most of the jobs out there were like the jobs are out there today. For farming, you know, is picking vegetables and fruits. You don't know, it doesn't pay very well, right? These people moved to the cities, guys. Okay? So let's say you were living in Missouri and you lost your farm. So you pack up the family in your car. You're going to go west. All right? Start driving across Kansas and you stop in Wichita. There's no jobs in Wichita. And they got their own homeless problem here in Wichita. Do they want you from Missouri stopping and staying in Wichita? No. We don't need any more people that need help. We got enough people. We got enough problems in our own city. You need to move along. Get on. We don't want you here. Move on. Okay? People hopped on train cars. Have no idea where they're going. Just escaping. Hopefully winding up in a better place. Okay? Now, our veterans might remember something called the Adjusted Compensation Act, or the bonus bill. So veterans that served in World War I could borrow against this, get like 25%. So, guys, that money didn't mature until 1945. So like 20,000 veterans march on Washington. They want to get paid. You know, it's probably like $500 or $600 that they're owed. The average one, $500 or $600, go a long way. In 1932. So peaceful protest, Washington D.C. Okay, they're going to bring in all these veterans, and Congress is going to vote on it. Should we give the veterans their money? Well, one of the members of Congress, I think his name was Patman, said, why don't we just give all the veterans $500? So all these people came to support that bill. And Congress voted. And they voted no. Now, did these veterans have somewhere to, like, money to stay in a hotel somewhere when they were in D.C. like you guys did? No. Hoover put them up in empty office spaces in the Capitol, like gave them somewhere to sleep while they were waiting. And then when the bill failed, a lot of them left. But about 2,000 never left. They stayed. And they built a Hooverville right down the street where President Hoover was living. The White House. A Hooverville. And then they started to riot and protest. And Hoover said, you know what? These people need to go away. They were causing too much trouble. So what is Hoover going to do? He's going to call in the Army. Who are the people in these in this shanty town? Oh, they're veterans of the Army. So he's going to call out the Army on the veterans of the Army. Right? Oh, the optics of this are not good. So who's in charge of the Army at that time? A guy named Douglas MacArthur, and his right-hand man was a guy named Dwight Eisenhower. Tanks, cavalry on horseback as well. We're going to march down towards the camps. Now, if you're a veteran and you're like, hey guys, look, the Army, they're doing a parade. Look, it's a parade. No, it's not a parade. They're coming to kick you off the federal land and burn down your shanty town. Fights break out. Tear gas. People get shot. An infant dies from the tear gas. Hoover just called out the Army on his own citizens. Not any citizens. Veterans. Okay. Think Hoover's going to get reelected? No. I don't think so. Okay. Guys, can you think of any other examples of the U.S. Army, not the National Guard, the U.S. Army being brought out against its own citizens in this country? You can't think of any. It's not supposed to happen. The president is not allowed to use the U.S. Army on domestic soil against its own people. Now, the National Guard is different. Okay? And that's called out all the time to keep the peace. Or like a hurricane or tornado, you call it the National Guard, right? The governor has control over each state's National Guard. Am I running out of time? Okay. Have you ever heard of Kent State University? Where's that at? Okay, it's in Ohio, and it's famous. 1972, I believe it was. 3? Okay. Vietnam War. Protests. College campuses? Yes. Wichita State? Yes. Okay. KU? Yes. K-State? Not sure. Okay. Kent State University in Ohio. Protests. Oh, by the way, I'll just put this picture up. Yeah, that's what it looked like. Yeah, with the Capitol building in the background there. Okay.
Life, liberty, and
We got a 35? Okay. So in Kent State, like the protesters came and they were having trouble with them. And the governor said, look, we're done with this. This is a college. You need to go to class. We're not doing this anymore. Okay? Threatened to call out the National Guard if it happened again. These are college students, right? This is the 60s, 70s, right? Yeah, we're not going to listen to these people. So here comes the protest, right? Call out the National Guard. Words are exchanged. Now listen, these are 18, 19, 20-year-olds on the college campus. The National Guard, 18, 19, 20-something-year-olds, right? That went that way instead of college. Follow me? Words are exchanged. Tear gas is deployed. Protesters throw the tear gas back at the National Guard, and one of the National Guardmen opens fire. And then another one opens fire. I think something like 14 people are shot. 4 are killed. 4 dead in Ohio, the college campus. Okay. Doesn't happen very often that you see this sort of thing happen in the United States. Okay. So Want to bring that up, okay? We talked about Waco, Texas, Branch Davidian compound,
Talk about it again.
April 19th.
We haven't got it detailed, but it's a cool story.
We haven't.
It's a great story.
April 19th. April 19th, 1775. The battles of Lexington and Concord. What were the British troops going out to Lexington and Concord to get? The guns, the weapons, powder, Hancock, Sam Adams, right? April 19th, Patriots Day. April 19th, 1993. Waco, Texas. Branch Davidian compound. Anybody know what the Branch Davidians were?
They're like dogs.
It was a religious cult led by a guy named David Koresh. It wasn't a cult?
Yeah, but like not like sacrifice.
Well, dude, every cult's different. A cult is a new religion. Are cults illegal in the United States? No. Is private property illegal in the United States? Is owning a gun illegal in the United States? Is owning more than one gun illegal in the United States? Okay. Is the First Amendment protect freedom of religion? Okay, so David Koresh and the Branch Davidians were living on a compound outside of Waco, Texas. Yes, they are weird. Okay, yes, he was stockpiling weapons. Yes, the FBI wanted to talk to him about his weapons. And he told the FBI, don't come out here. We haven't broken any laws. You come out here and trespass, you're going to have a problem on your hands. So the FBI shows up. Koresh and his followers come out with guns. We got a standoff. Waco, Texas. There's one cable news network. It's called the Cable News Network, CNN. CNN goes to Waco. They got their cameras there, and they're like, standoff. Day 2, Branch Davidian compound. Next week, standoff. Day 12, Branch Davidian compound. Okay? It's like 24-hour coverage by CNN, right? Everybody's watching this. You got me zooming in on the compound. You got all the ATF, the FBI out here, okay? Then April 19th rolls around, day like 54. I don't know what day it was, but it's like 50 days, okay? And the Attorney General of the United States at the time, a woman named Janet Reno, decides, you know what? We're not waiting any longer. We're going in. They used the tank. They used military helicopters. And they stormed the compound on April 19th, 1993. Now, Janet, Miss Reno, the 18th, okay. The 20th, okay. But not the 19th. The symbolism here is not too good. Okay. What is the FBI going out there for? Fight ensues, right? Big fire starts. Bunch of people die. Federal government had just stormed private property to seize guns, both of which are legal. Now, 2 years later, on April 19th, 1995, a guy named Timothy McVeigh wanted to take revenge against the federal government for what happened in Waco. He blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City with fertilizer, killing hundreds of innocent people, including children. Okay, April 19th. A lot of people point to the Branch Davidian thing as, government overreach. Okay. Timothy McVeigh is an idiot. He was tried, found guilty, and has been executed by the U.S. government. Okay. All right. Eisenhower. Carter. There's a picture of Eisenhower and Carter. Okay. All right. Not their proudest moment. Okay. All right. Where are we at? Okay. So tomorrow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, I have like 3 videos over the stuff I talked about. I'll start with that. Okay. Then we're going to talk about Hoover's reaction, Public Works, Dust Bowl, Port Affairs. We should finish the notes Thursday. I'm going on Friday. We'll watch a video on Friday that will recap some of the stuff that we've talked about. Okay, with Mr. Holman. Come back on Monday. We'll have a review day. And Tuesday we'll take the first test. Sound like a plan? Good? Rock and roll.